All right, so now we're going to talk about acyclic HART data in terms of DTM, device type management. So there's two different ways to really talk about the DTMs and acyclic data through DTMs when we're talking HART for Phoenix Contact. And the first is Startup Plus. So Startup Plus does not get you that HART data. What it does is it allows you to do local configuration of the HART modules when you're using Acyclic F. So if you're using Acyclic F, for example, and you are doing Modbus TCP, and you want to configure your HART I/O module, you're going to use Startup Plus. So it's not really acyclic DTM HART data. It's more so acyclic configuration of the HART module. We're going to show it anyway. So let's get into Startup Plus. All right, so here we are in Startup Plus. I'm using the Acyclic F Profinet bus coupler, but you can use any bus coupler in Startup Plus, such as Modbus TCP, Ethernet IP, etc. Basically, all we're going to do is go ahead and connect to the system. We have our digital input and analog input module here. We're going to focus on the HART module here and go on to online parameterization. So in online parameterization here, close out this menu, we can see that we've got access to parameterizing the HART module. So again, we're not going to get the HART specific sensor information and data from Startup Plus because it doesn't have a HART communication DTM. What it does have is the access to, or the ability to parameterize or configure the HART module. So we can go ahead and enable or disable alarms and configure channels. So we see here channels 1 through 8. This is the 4 to 20 milliamp configuration. And then down here under HART channels, we see channels 1 through 8. Under channels 1 through 8, we can go ahead and enable or disable the alarms. If you've watched the cyclic configuration portion of this video, you'll know that this looks very familiar. Again, process data down here, or process values, we can do 8 HART slots, and we can set them to be any channel, any physical channel on the device, and set it to be PV, SV, TV, QV, or loop current. There's a few other things we can do in the Startup Plus DTM. Is we can actually go to observe, and we can monitor, we can see some information about the actual HART, the actual HART module, the I/O module. You can see here the serial number, order number, firmware, but more importantly, we can actually see the process data. So we see here the input process data, and it shows us this is the actual buffer. This is the 48-byte process data buffer that gets sent to the controller. So it's just, it's good to know. Lastly, we've also got diagnosis, and under the diagnostic section, we can look and see the overall status and health of the I/O module. If there's an error somewhere, we're going to see this diagnostics indicate that there's an error. So if I go ahead and, for example, remove one of the HART sensors, this updates ever so slowly, but it will update and let us know that there's an error. So we see here error code 8920 under range. That's pretty much the extent of Startup Plus. Once you go ahead and make changes and send this down, it will configure the I/O module, and that module information, that parameterization, that configuration will get saved. It will be saved in the module, and it can be used this way to configure I/O modules. So now we're going to get back over and look at the other kind of DTM portion of this module using a HART communications DTM. All right, so like I was saying, there's another side to HART acyclic data using DTMs is using a communication DTM for HART. Now, this is not just parameterizing the actual HART module, but it's actually tunneling through the HART module and parameterizing or performing asset management on the connected HART device or sensor. So again, you need a HART communication DTM and a device DTM to be able to do this. let's go over to a FDT DTM container tool such as Pactware so we can show this configuration and asset management. All right, so here we are in Pactware, which is an FDT DTM container application. It's a freeware tool because this really just gets you access to DTMs. There is no asset management available for Pactware. This is really the first kind of step into asset management. First step is connecting to your system, parameterizing it, configuring all your HART sensors and your IO, your sensors on the system, and then the next step would be use a tool such as Emerson AMS or Yokogawa PRM to perform the actual asset management of a network. So we're just going to show the HART data that you can get through a freeware tool such as Pactware, Field Care, etc. Basically, in this scenario, actually, we're just using Acyclic P. Earlier, we were showing Acyclic F with Startup Plus. Acyclic P is not on Startup Plus. You can do all the configuration in Startup Plus that you've seen through our DTM here, through the device DTM. But what Acyclic P has, which is nice, is you can actually do the HART communication DTM. It is also possible to do everything that we're showing you using the Acyclic F AI8, but you need a PLC Next 2152 or 3152. Because there is a app that you can get and you can put a Docker image and a container onto a PLC Next, and then you can use the HART communication as an app. I'm going to show it off on the Acyclic P because it's easier to display here. But the process is exactly the same for PLC Next 2152 with the HART IO module next to it. So basically, I'm just going to go ahead and perform a topology scan. And I'm going to scan through my Acyclic P network. It's pulling up all my I/O, and then it sees I have a HART module. So my analog input HART module is going to discover a HART sensor connected to channel 1. It's going to add it to my topology, and then I'm able to configure and communicate with it. So what this is an MCR thermocouple module. It's a Phoenix contact module. The reason why this showed up here and it populated properly is because I've got the DTM connected here. I've got the MCR already in here. So we see here the HART sensor DTM is right there. It's already assigned to channel 1. So very good. Now we're going to kind of show off the configuration that can be done using the communication DTM. So before we do that, I'm going to connect to my HART module here. And just like Startup Plus, I'm going to go ahead and go to online parameterization. Here we see the same information that we saw in Startup Plus. Ability to configure, change, parameterize any of the parameters in the HART module. So this is really nice when you're doing benchtop testing and you don't have a PLC or a controller to send down a startup parameterization. We can see here this is exactly how the I/O module is configured. Reading first 5 slots is pulling the PV, SV, TV, QE loop current. We can go ahead and change any of this, just like in Startup Plus. If I go to measure value or observe, we do see a bit more information. So earlier we just saw the identification of the module and the process data, but we see here it broken out a bit more. Oops, that's not what I want. There we go. So we see here, if I just expand the window just a bit more, the actual 48 bytes of data, of process data, is all right here. This is again the process data that's provided to the controller. It's a 48 byte array. We can look at the 8 channels for analog input and the 8 4-byte slots, the process data for HART. It's just broken out here in this nice little view here. So this is just helpful. You can actually see what the HART process data is and what it will look like without having a controller. So just like another benefit here of using the DTM, you can look at this HART data here, and you can set that to you can go into hex to to float converter and look at what that value really is giving you. Again, this is all like benchtop testing. If you actually click on the HART channel, you get a lot more information. So we get not only the input process data, so the 4 to 20 milliamp, we get the measured float of that value. So that's our 7.42 milliamps. That's our 4 to 20 milliamp value. We get the sub-device PV, so we get the primary variable of the HART device and all the information about the HART device right here. So we see it's a Phoenix contact device. This is the device ID and the sub-device tag, and again, PV. Really helpful to have all this information right here. So I don't have any other HART sensors connected, so they're not going to show anything here, but we're also going to see here that HART is disabled on these other channels. So again, just using the communication DTM, you can get, just at a glance, a lot of information about the HART device, the HART sensor. Last thing, again, diagnosis. We can look at diagnostics on the device. Diagnostic state here, we can look at the actual status of the module, if there's any issues going on. We can reset diagnostics on each channel. So all very good stuff here. This is the DTM from the device side. Now the next step really would be to go ahead and connect to the, what's going on here? Let's go ahead and shut that down. I'm just probably going to reconnect here, so just give me one moment. All right, so I just had a little issue with Pactware freezing up on me, so I just killed the application and I got back to where we were. So we're back in, connected to the DTM again. Instead of going to the HART module, we're gonna go directly into this HART sensor here. I'm not sure why the tag isn't showing up here. It's blank, but the tag should be showing something like this. Again, just some difficulties working with Pactware. So we're going to go ahead and connect the actual HART sensor, and then if you have the HART sensor installed, the DTM, you can go to online parameterization. And in online parameterization, we will be able to see a lot more information. Now, this is one of the biggest benefits, the largest benefits that you can get with the communication DTM is using this Acyclic P and the Acyclic F with the PLC Next 2052. You can tunnel down into the connected HART sensor's vendor-specific DTM. So you see the screen here. It's a Phoenix contact device. Looks very similar to Anderson Hauser, but it's a DTM, in this case from Phoenix Contact, but a vendor-specific DTM. So this has nothing to do with our Axial line I/O module. We're just using that I/O module to tunnel down through and find information, read information about the device and parameterize it. All right, so we see here, this is the actual information coming from the device, and we can see the output current, 7 or 7.5 milliamps, the PV, device temperature, etc. We can go here and go into the actual DTM and make changes. So here's my sensor, here's my HART device that I've got connected. It's set up for type K thermocouple, etc. If I want to parameterize this, let's say it comes out of the box as type K and I actually have a PT100. I can go here and simply select, PT100. And that will then allow me to parameterize this HART sensor. Mine is actually set up for thermocouple, so I'm not going to change it to PT100. But if I click enter, it will then parameterize that HART sensor. So again, we can do all of our HART parameterization, configuration, DTM work through this system, through the Acyclic the Acyclic HART modules. So not only is this really beneficial for configuring and parameterizing, it's necessary when you don't have a HART dongle or a HART field network device or a communication handheld device to be able to tap into the HART loop and parameterize. Or if the HART sensor is already installed in the field and it's very far away, you can connect to the DTM here and parameterize that HART sensor. So very, very helpful. The next step here to talk about acyclic HART communication would be to really get into asset management. I don't have PRM or AMS installed on this machine, so I can't really show you. But now we would really, if you're using PRM, for example, you would go to that next level and save this configuration, upload it into PRM, your asset management tool, and the asset management software would then perform, predictive maintenance and asset management on your HART sensors through your axial line equipment. So that's the next step here, is to go one step further and to perform real, predictive maintenance and asset management on your HART devices using your axial line HART IO module. So that's pretty much it. That's the DTMs. That's the way to use DTMs, whether it's device or communication DTM or both, to utilize the HART modules, our axial line F and axial line P HART modules for configuration, parameterization of HART sensors, and all that stuff. So that's the other side of the Acyclic, using the DTMs, and that's pretty much it.